No drama with the curbs this year at the Indianapolis road course, but for the second straight season, a driver battling for the win gets hit with a penalty. How's it going, y'all? My name is Eric. Welcome to Out of the Groove Indianapolis road course race review edition. Gosh, you know, I love that NASCAR's added a couple new road courses to the schedule, but it feels like every time we race at one of these roval type tracks that NASCAR's not used to going to, something unforeseen happens that causes NASCAR to reassess their entire rule book. For the second year in a row, NASCAR was forced to make a difficult officiating decision in the closing laps regarding one of the race leaders. We'll get to that and much more in this episode, but first, we have to thank this week's sponsor, Alka Seltzer. Plop, plop, fizz, fizz, oh what a relief it is. The iconic brand is back in NASCAR on Bailey Currey's number 4 Xfinity Series Chevrolet, the first time they've been on a driver's car in 19 years, not since Matt Kenseth back in the old Busch Series days. Alka Seltzer is available at Walmart. It's an honor to help reintroduce them to NASCAR fans. They've been supporters of this show for the last couple of years, but now they're back on the racetrack in beautiful blue and orange colors. Look for Bailey Currey's Alka Seltzer Chevrolet a few more times before the end of this season. Thanks to Alka Seltzer for sponsoring the show. Again, Alka Seltzer is available at your local Walmart. The Indianapolis road course is tailor-made for chaos. On restarts, you have a long, wide front straightaway that funnels into a tight right-hand turn 1. We saw last year on the final restart, Chase Briscoe got rubbed a little wide, he cut through the grass, came out with the lead, ended up being under penalty, but not knowing he was under penalty. He ended up spinning out Denny Hamlin before eventually pulling off the racetrack. This year ended similarly. Turn 1 was a trouble spot all day. We saw spin after spin after spin. We saw Kyle Larson lose his brakes, resulting in a frightening crash, a huge impact with Ty Dillon. Both drivers thankfully walked away. They seemed to be all right. Turn 1 was dangerous no matter if it was the beginning, middle, or end of a fuel run, but on restarts, boy, turn 1 was nearly undrivable. This race came down to a couple of late race restarts and the clowns came to play. Tyler Reddick dominated this race. We'll talk more about him in a moment. He was the only driver on these 2 restarts really able to get through unscathed. If you weren't on that front row, and in some cases even if you were on the front row, as Chase Elliott found, you were in the danger zone. Elliott got spun out from second. Joey Logano, back in like irrelevant place, just decided to make his own lane that did not exist. A clown move of the race goes to the 22. No respect whatsoever. Any care drivers may have had for one another went completely out the window. Drivers turned themselves into 3,000-pound running backs out there. If there's even a little bit of daylight, a tiny hole, try to fill it. Big heavy race cars, door slamming each other, 4 and 5 wide, did not work out. We saw spin after spin after spin. The final couple restarts, again, the clowns came to play. But one driver thought he could outsmart the rest, thought he could outsmart NASCAR themselves, and that driver, of course, is Ross Chastain. Rather than sail it off into turn 1 and likely get pushed out wide into the grass by 4 other drivers to his inside, Chastain decided to blow through the first turn, go through the access road, the runoff strip, drive around some tire barriers, and rejoin the field after like turn 2. He did this and actually came out ahead of race leader Tyler Reddick. He passed like 6 cars by not racing on the designed course. Now NASCAR, much like with Chase Briscoe last year, it took them a while to communicate whether or not Chastain was actually under penalty. And this is an interesting point because I'm not entirely sure per NASCAR's rulebook that Chastain should have been penalized. I have not heard NASCAR's official statement at this point. I've not seen where this may be written in the rulebook, so I do not know for sure. This is just speculation, but from the surface, it appears as though Ross Chastain was handed a tail end of the lead lap finish for exposing NASCAR's lackadaisical, vague, non-specific access road rules. Now, if there's a clause in the rulebook coming into this race that read, hey, you can only use the access road if you're explicitly trying to avoid a crash that is happening, then okay, Chastain deserved to be penalized because while, sure, there was contact up ahead, there was not a crash happening. But if that's not in the rulebook, if it just says, hey, you can use the access road if you miss turn 1 and that's where it ends, period, end of story, then I kind of feel bad for Ross Chastain getting hit with a 28th place finish. Like, don't get me wrong, it was a cheap move and I'm glad he didn't win because of it, but I hate to see him get penalized just because he exposed a poorly thought out section of NASCAR's rulebook. This is what I said at the very beginning. NASCAR races at a lot of road courses now, and every year it feels like we're going to a new track for the first or maybe the second time ever. And it feels like every time we go to road courses not named Watkins Glen or Sonoma, NASCAR's road course officiating gets exposed somehow. At COTA, where are the track limits? Which corners can you cut? At Road America, should we have local yellows so we don't have long caution laps? Or today at the Indy road course, when should the access roads be used? Look, again, if NASCAR has it written out explicitly in the rulebook that you can only use the access road if you are avoiding a crash that is like already happening, it needs to be clearly defined, then I have no issue with this penalty. But otherwise, I kind of feel bad for Chastain getting hit with a 28th place finish. He didn't deserve to win, but he should have gotten a top 5, top 10. He shouldn't be punished for exposing a loophole in the NASCAR rulebook. At least that's just my opinion. Anyway, I spent way more time on that than I meant to. Let's talk about the winner, because Tyler Reddick was the only driver on those final couple restarts who really didn't have any issues. Of course, he came out behind Chastain, had to race him cleanly and pass him cleanly to get the lead back. I guess he was already the leader because Chastain was under pressure. Still, whatever. But Tyler Reddick ran a great race. He was the best car. He was the best driver all day. He started on pole and never didn't look like the best car. Chase Briscoe won the first stage. Christopher Bell won the second stage, but Tyler Reddick was playing to win. They recognized immediately that they had probably the best car in the field, and they were playing for the checkers. Happy to see it work out for Tyler Reddick, Randall Burnett. It's a bit awkward. This is the first win now for Reddick and RCR since it was announced Reddick would be leaving RCR at the end of next season, if not sooner. We know there's bad blood. Richard Childress was not happy with Tyler Reddick's decision or how and when he chose to announce it. Rumors continue to swirl that Reddick could be out of the 8 car a year early. But one thing that hasn't changed since the announcement, Tyler Reddick is a legit contender. He makes Richard Childress Racing a deep playoff threat and potentially a championship threat. This is the best year we've seen from an RCR driver since maybe Ryan Newman in 2014, even though he didn't win a race. He did make it all the way to the championship 4. 2 wins now on the season for Reddick, 5 more playoff points with only 4 races to go until the playoffs begin. If they can put that bad blood behind them, at least for the rest of this year. If Reddick doesn't come back next year, to me that's RCR's loss. Use him as long as you got him under contract. But for this year, at the very least, hopefully both sides can let bygones be bygones and they can put all their focus and energy into winning this year's championship. I never thought RCR was going to suddenly stop giving Reddick the best equipment or the best people. No, I think they are all in, at least from a personnel side. It's just personalities and awkwardness and tension, unspoken tension perhaps behind the scenes at the shop. Hopefully that doesn't get in the way of a potential deep playoff run. Now let's look at some of the other top finishers and then we'll look at the playoffs briefly. Look at all the rookies in the top 5. This is insane. Obviously a ton of late race restarts, some varying strategies, so that jumbled things up quite a bit. But hey, Todd Gillen, want to give him a shout out because yeah, he gets a top 5. He didn't run there all day. He did though run inside and around the top 10 all day. I think he qualified like 9th or 10th. And stayed around there all race long. So took advantage of all the craziness, got himself the top 5. Huge shout out to Todd Gillen, best race of his career. And I mean, you could probably say the same about Harrison Burton in the 21. Top 5 for him, that's outstanding. Obviously, you got Austin Cindric up there, also a rookie. He's already got a win this year, going back to the Daytona 500, and we know he's a great road course racer, but that's got to feel good as well. Remind the world that, hey, you are a well above average road course driver. So love seeing all those rookies up there in the top 5. Bubba Wallace, not a great road course racer by any means, finishes 5th. That's great. Toyota has struggled at road courses all year long. Even drivers like Martin Truex Jr. and Denny Hamlin, who are typically great at road courses, they have not been near the top of their game this season. So Bubba Wallace salvaging a top 5, one of the few bright spots for them today. You don't see any other Toyotas in the top 10. You got Kyle Busch and Christopher Bell just outside the top 10. And Christopher Bell, I mentioned, won a stage. He was a top 5 threat all day long. He might have been the 2nd or 3rd best car behind Tyler Reddick until he blew a tire late. And even with all that damage, came home to finish 12th. Good resiliency. I called him a clown earlier, but hey, Joey Logano did finish 6th. Often in NASCAR, we do see the most aggressive drivers rewarded with the best results. So as much crap as I'm going to continue to give Logano for that ridiculous bonsai move, he finished 6th. You do what you gotta do. You do what works. You do what's gotten you here. AJ Allmendinger was overheating at the end. Not the car, not the engine, the driver. It was a fairly warm day out at Indy, I think low mid 80s, and AJ Allmendinger, I believe, had his cool suit fail at one point pretty early in the race, was struggling physically throughout the entire second half. He muscled home to a 7th place finish. You saw him exhausted outside the car after the race. What a gutsy performance. Deserves a ton of credit for wheeling that thing to a top 10. And oh my gosh, do my eyes deceive me? Did Chris Buescher really finish 10th? He was literally on fire. Like, he couldn't breathe. He was choking on fire extinguisher flames and smoke. How did he get 10th? I gotta go back and watch the last few restarts again. I thought he was like 4 laps down. I thought he was in the garage. How did Chris Buescher go from literally on fire? He had flames shooting up outside the passenger side window. How did he get 10th? Oh, wow. Wow, Cole Custer at top 10, good for him. Michael McDowell, we expect him to finish top 10 at road courses these days. Way to bounce back after that massive penalty that was issued to them earlier this week. Glad they still showed that they got speed. But Chris Buescher in 10th. I got these results from the NASCAR app, and sometimes the NASCAR app isn't the most reliable, so maybe this is wrong. This has to be wrong. There's no way he actually got a top 10. He was on fire, literally on fire, up in flames. This is, wow. Couple other shout outs I want to give. Chase Elliott, probably top 3 car once again, was trying to extend his top 2 finishing streak to 6 races and looked like he was going to do it until the final couple restarts happened and he got spun. He finishes 16th, so disappointing end to another strong day for Chase Elliott, the championship favorite in my opinion. And Ty Gibbs. Second career Cup Series start, first time actually getting to practice and qualify the car earlier in the weekend. He comes home a respectable 17th. Very similar. I think last week he was credited with 16th at Pocono, so pretty solid first 2 weeks for Ty Gibbs in the 45 car. Now real quick, let's just glance at the playoff grid. Not a lot of change here. It's really just must win for everybody. Ryan Blaney and Martin Truex Jr. both extended their lead over Kevin Harvick and the rest of the bubble drivers. You know, Harvick on down, Almirola, Eric Jones, Bubba Wallace. They need to win if they're gonna make the playoffs. That's their only hope. It's been that way for a few weeks now at least. Today was a really disappointing day for both Almirola and Harvick. Almirola, I believe, got into Larson going into turn 1. I don't remember if Almirola like overcooked it or if Larson had a flat tire and was slow, but door slammed the 5-ton of damage. He finished actually last, and Kevin Harvick finished 33rd. He was involved in a number of incidents, was pissed off at like 6 or 7 different drivers over the radio over the course of the afternoon. So just a bad day for Kevin Harvick, and not really by any fault of his own, just wrong place, wrong time repeatedly. Not much else there. Blaney does gap himself from Truex just a bit. Truex this year on road courses has been an enigma. He finished 21st today. He only has 1 top 10 in the 4 road courses this year. It was a 7th place at, I think, Coda. If that doesn't tell you something's wrong with Toyota and their road course program, then I don't know what will. Anyway, those were your playoff standings. We've talked about the top finishers. Let's talk a little bit about Indianapolis for a second before we put this race on the Groovy gauge. So this was the second year of the Indianapolis road course. Last year they debuted it. The finish, of course, was dramatic. AJ Allmendinger swooped in after Briscoe and Hamlin's debacle. Fun event. I was there in person, had a great time. I didn't get to go to this year's race, but it looked like the crowd was just as strong as last year. I saw a report right before the race that attendance was estimated to be around 70,000. That's pretty darn good. We've commended Nashville Super Speedway for selling out. We've commended Gateway. 70,000 is more than either of those races. It's going to be more than Phoenix gets for the championship this fall. So 70,000, while it doesn't look great on TV at Indianapolis Motor Speedway, which seats like almost 300,000, still a decent crowd for NASCAR. Obviously, the Midwest, Indianapolis specifically, deserves a NASCAR race in that market. I thought the Truck Series at IRP Friday night, that looked pretty darn cool. Definitely something NASCAR should continue to explore, maybe for the Xfinity Series, and maybe one day a Cup Series race, even if it's just an exhibition. I'd love to see that happen. But as far as Indianapolis Motor Speedway is concerned, the most famous, the most historic racetrack on planet Earth. Roger Penske said he expects next year's race to be on the road course once again, but come 2024, there's a possibility the Brickyard 400 on the oval, on the rectangle, could return. He even teased the idea of possibly alternating road course, oval, road course year to year. I know these first 2 years of the road course have had their clown moments. Last year, of course, it was the curb coming up on the backstretch and wrecking a bunch of cars. This year was more on the drivers for just racing with no respect going into turn 1. But I'll say this, I greatly enjoyed last year's Indy road course race. And this year, up until the final couple restarts, I really enjoyed this one. Yeah, it looked like Reddick was going to cruise to the win before those last couple of cautions, but the strategy play, especially in the first half, kept the first 2 stages more interesting than I'm used to the first couple stages at road courses being. I had a good time, and at least it felt like Tyler Reddick, the most deserving driver in Team All Day, was going to get the win they deserve. So, I was happy. If the race ended with Reddick beating Elliott by 3 seconds or whatever, I would have been very content and very pleased. I would have gotten my time's worth watching the race here this afternoon. I would like to see the oval come back because to me it obviously holds much more prestige. Most of that prestige is based on IndyCar's history at the facility without question, but NASCAR did build up their own history over the years. And I think if you ask just about any, especially any veteran driver in the Cup Series garage, they will lobby for the oval to return before the road course. I know on social media this week I've seen a ton of fans and commentators and members of the media pushing for the oval to return, and I understand that, and I wouldn't be opposed to it, especially with this next gen car. I think it might race better in Indy than we've seen any other car race at Indy. But if NASCAR does go back to the oval, the Indianapolis Motor Speedway oval, in the next couple of years, I hope people show up. Twitter and social media are very important, and that's where a lot of the most vocal and passionate fans live, but it's not necessarily indicative of the entire NASCAR fan base as a whole. As much as I've applauded NASCAR for trying their best to listen to the fans over the past few years, sometimes I think they do listen a little too closely and put too much emphasis on trying to please the Twitter crowd or the fans who are way more active on social media. And sometimes I think that's been to their detriment. So I don't know where I land on this. I actually don't hate the idea of alternating year to year to year. I'd like to see the oval return at some point in the next couple of years just to see how the next gen races on it, but I also don't want to just abandon the road course just like that. I love that it allows a double header weekend with IndyCar, and I don't want to just give that up without putting a little extra thought into it. That's my only take there. In other words, I'm torn. Share your thoughts down in the comment section below. Do you want to see the oval return next year? Do you want the oval to return permanently? Do you want to see the road course stick it out for a few more years? Let me know what you think down in the comments below. Now, let's put this race on the Groovy gauge and get out of here. The end of this race was a little sloppy, a little messy, a little crazy, typical NASCAR road course stuff, but it was fun. Overall, it was fun. It was entertaining. It checked that box. The strategy calls in stage 1, stage 2, and early stage 3 were also very engaging. Like I said, even if the race ended without any cautions at the end and Reddick just, blew Chase Elliott out of the water, I would have still given this race a positive score, definitely over 50-60%. With all the craziness at the end, it was borderline. Sloppy at times for sure, but ultimately the most deserving driver and team still won the race, so I can't hate on it too bad. God gave NASCAR stock cars fenders for a reason, so I don't mind a little beating and banging. I don't love clown moves like we saw at times at the end, so I don't exactly know where to come down on this. I'm going to give it a similar score to what I gave Pocono last week, but obviously for very different reasons. They were very different races. I'm going to give this one, I don't know, a 72%, kind of an odd specific number mixed in there. I enjoyed it. It was a good race. It was a good race before all the chaos and crazy restarts at the end, but the crazy restarts, I won't deny, gave us more to talk about, that's for sure. Leave your thoughts down in the comment section below. What kind of score would you give this race on your own Groovy gauges? And I think that's gonna do it. Congrats again to Tyler Reddick, second win of the season, second win of his career. Both wins have now come on road courses. Kind of an interesting trend, but great race nonetheless. Thanks for watching, y'all. As always, if you're not already, be sure to hit that subscribe button down below. We talk NASCAR every single day. In the last couple weeks, there has been no shortage of bombshell news stories. Make sure you're in the loop, hit that subscribe button down below. And as always as well, big thank you to my Patreon supporters. I truly appreciate your consistent and very generous support. I'll be back later this week. Plenty to talk about after Indianapolis. Thanks for watching, y'all. I'll see you in the next video. Have a great rest of your weekend.